Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name's Jack, this is Jthbooks, and it is time for the July reading wrap-up. So here we are again, the end of another month, the end of another glorious month of reading. Well, glorious, that might have been a bit strong. But we managed to read 9 books. 9 books. Very much down from the sort of 13, 14, well, 4 or 5 books down from the previous months, but you know, July, the anxiety was extremely bad at the beginning of July. Your boy was struggling quite badly. So that definitely had an effect on me. It had an effect on me. We always had Wimbledon. I get very distracted by the tennis. I'm not going to lie. I love tennis. Roger Federer. Chef's kiss. But that's not what you're here. You're not here to listen to me talk about Roger Federer. Although I could do a 6-hour video on him. But you're here to talk about the books. I read 9 books, like I said, 8 physically, 1 audio. And let's just talk about the book, shall we? First up, we have Leg, A Story of a Limb and the Boy Who Grew From It by Greg Marshall. Now, this was my non-fiction for the month, and it's very much just a look at Greg's life growing up, dealing with his mum who has cancer and his father passes away. And he also has cerebral palsy, but his parents never told him. They just told him he had tight tendons. And it is just how he dealt with life with his disability, not knowing he had one, and how it affected his growing up and how it affected his relationships with men. And it talks about, you know, the first time he falls in love, the first time he has sex, and it deals with grief and worry. It was really interesting. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the ending because he sort of, you know, was very much worrying about what his life was going to be like, and it was nice to see how it's turned out for him. And it was just a really good piece of queer non-fiction. So I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much to Orion Books for sending me the copy. This one is out now, and I really enjoyed it. Next up, we have The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. Now, this book is already out. It came out 10 years ago, but Samantha Shannon and Bloomsbury, to celebrate the 10-year anniversary, have released a new edition. It's more elaborated on the world, as Samantha Shannon feels like she knows it more now. Now, in this, we follow Paige, who is a clairvoyant and a dreamwalker, and just by being that, she is illegal. And then when she is captured and taken to another city, she is suddenly a prisoner of these otherworldly people, and then she gets put with a warden, and chaos ensues. That wasn't a very good description, but it's very hard to describe this one without giving away any spoilers, but it took me a while to get into it. What ended up taking me a while to get into it, but I actually really liked about it, is it sort of just throws you in at the deep end. It's not going to give you a bunch of world building at the beginning. It's going to explain it as it goes along. And this is a 7-part series, so it's obviously going to grow and expand. But I really enjoyed this. Like I said, at first I didn't get what Paige's powers were, or I didn't quite understand the world. But as it went on, I got to know it, and I really liked it. It feels like a very sort of YA book of 10 years ago, but it didn't matter. I just really enjoyed it. I really liked Paige. I thought she was a really brilliant character, very nuanced and very complex. Wasn't sort of your average heroine if you in these type of books. It was a ride. It was very hard not to pick up the second one, which I don't know. The second one straight away, I thought, do I just need to go out and buy the second one so I can carry on this series? But no, I didn't do that. I made sure I tried to read my TBR. But I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to see where the story goes. I can't wait to see the world expand. It ended on such a cliffhanger. And, you know, it had sort of your classic romance in, but I was a sucker for it. I absolutely fell for it. So, you know, I'm not going to complain about it. Yeah, it's just really interesting. I can't wait to see what's going to happen in the next ones. Like, thank you so much for Bloomsbury. The 10th anniversary edition is out this month. Next up was the book that you all voted for, and it was Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Now, there is a whole reading vlog on this. I'll link it down below. So if you do want to watch sort of my in-depth detailed thoughts, well, do I have any of those? Who knows? You can watch that. But this is the story of a young girl who marries Maxim de Winter and is sort of taken to Manderley, his house, and she very much lives in the shadow of Rebecca. Now, the first 3/4 of the book, I would have given it sort of 4.5, maybe even 5 stars. I was really into it. I thought there was some beautiful writing in it. Daphne du Maurier is very descriptive and very good at her characters and very good at building the atmosphere. But for me, well, there was a twist, which wasn't necessarily shocking, but I did enjoy it. I thought it needed something and it gave it to me. But then the ending, it didn't quite gel right with me for some reason. I can't quite figure out why. It's not something I would have thought that was going to happen. I didn't see it coming, but I don't know if it necessarily worked. I don't know if it felt like an easy way out. I don't know how to describe it, but like I said, if you want my full thoughts on this one, the reading vlog will be linked down below. Certainly not a bad book. I'm not, not saying I'm a du Maurier hater, but something was amiss. Something was amiss for me. With the ending, I can't put my finger on it, but I'm very thankful for you all to vote in. I'll link this month's TBR down below. Get voting. It's a weird choices between two weird ones for this month. So that's going to be interesting. I'm very excited to see what you vote for. Next up, we have Little Rabbit by Alyssa Song-Siride. Now, this is the story of a woman who meets a choreographer and doesn't particularly like him. They don't hit it off particularly. And then they meet years later and they begin a relationship together. And she is a queer woman who normally dates women. And it is then about her figuring out her life now that she is dating a man. And I can see what this book was trying to do. It is a look at, can you still call yourself queer? Can you still be queer if you are now dating a man? And I think the answer is, of course you can. Queerness can be whatever it means to you. You can, it's a broad spectrum. You can be queer in many ways. But it's just a look at how people reacted to her when she was doing this. And it was also about, it was a very sort of spicy book, but spicy in a way of looking at sex and what does it mean, and what does it mean when she wants to be punished through sex. I get what it was trying to do, but for me, it just didn't particularly work. I don't think it went into enough detail about any of the things, even though I knew why the sex was sort of so graphic and so detailed. I knew why the author was doing it. I just don't think it worked. I even found myself questioning, why am I reading about this? What is the point on all this sex? But you do know, it was then probably that I realised I didn't particularly care. It just wasn't for me, this one. It was a quick read, but I will never remember this. And it felt like something out of nothing, which is so strange to say because it really did ask such big questions. It really sort of, had some things to say. I just don't think it quite executed it right. I think it could have almost been longer, which I particularly didn't want, but been longer and explored the things more. It all just felt a bit blasé, but yeah, no, it wasn't particularly for me one. But thank you to the publisher for the copy. It's out August the 3rd. Next up, we have Before the Coffee Gets Cold, Tales from the Calf by Toshikazu Kawaguchi, translated by Jeffrey Truslott. Now, this book follows very much in the same vein as the first one. You are in this cafe and you can go back in time if you sit in this chair when the ghost moves. I feel like I don't need to explain this one because I feel like a lot of people have read this one, but I think this was just as good as the first one. I really love this series. I think it does sentimentality really well. I think it doesn't go too over sentimental. There's always something that gives it a reality to it. It gives it a sort of a deep meaning. Sometimes I always think it's often told you sort of get 4 stories of someone being able to go back in the past. And sometimes most of the time I think this book isn't going to give me what I want from this story. It doesn't sort of get to the heart. And then sort of at the last minute, it does, and I think that really works. I think if it did it the whole time, it would be too over-sentimental. It would be too sort of fluffy and light, but I think this author strikes it just right, and I just sort of adore everything about these books. I mean, you can't help but think of that person who you would love to go back and just have 10 seconds with. I know for me it would be my mum. I would give anything to talk to her again. So I think it just does what it does really, really well. I couldn't help but get a bit teary-eyed at it. And I'm excited to read the third one. And there's a fourth one coming out soon, which I do have a proof for, which I'm looking at right now. So I do really enjoy this series. Next up, we have The List by Yomi Adegoke. Now, in The List, we follow Ola and Michael, who are sort of an Instagram power couple. They're sort of very much celebrated on social media for their black love and their relationship. And then everything sort of seems perfect until The List is produced and Michael is named as a harasser and an attacker. And it then sort of counts down to their wedding and deciding whether Ola wants to still marry this man. And what's really interesting about this book is Ola is very much someone who believes women, believes survivors, as we all should, and very much works on a magazine for that kind of thing, is very much known for that thing. And then when it is personal to her, it's, does she still believe these women? Does she still support them no matter what when it affects her life and her relationship? And it's a really, really interesting look at cancel culture and what it means when it happens to you perfectly. And this book is sort of a countdown to their wedding, and she's so undecided if she's going to marry him. And it's just really captivating to find out what she's going to do. And you also get it from Michael's perspective, and he's dealing with the fallout because he very much says, no, I didn't do this. It wasn't me. You can't believe this list. And there's other men on this list that are very sort of willing to fight it. And you sort of get that side of the argument, which we see in, real life. We see these men denying it, and we see them calling women liars, and there's no proof and all that. And it is just a really detailed, interesting look at this whole situation. It feels really modern. It's very fresh. It's very readable. I couldn't put it down. And the original cover is actually purple, but this is a proof from Full for Sale, which I'm very thankful for. It is out now, but my goodness, it will make you really, really think and ask yourself so many questions. And it had a really satisfying end, which it builds up to. And I just think the novel was pitched really, really well. I sort of think it was pitch perfect. It didn't go too one way or to the other. It was just a really classy look at what we see on the internet very often these days. I really enjoyed it. It was just immensely readable, and thanks to Full for Sale for my copy, and this one is out now. Next up, I read K-Pop Confidential by Stephen Lee. In this, we followed Candice, who is a Korean American girl living in New Jersey, and when the K-pop industry comes to her town, she decides to audition, she gets in, and this is about her becoming a trainee to debut in the K-pop world. Now, you know me, I love my Jisoo, I love Blackpink, and this is a very much a look at the K-pop industry and the training for it, because these trainees work very, very hard. Their conditions are not always great, but it's very much looking at that while standing out. Candice is very much a character who doesn't sort of fit the mold. She is very sort of outspoken and struggles to be told what to do. And I really enjoyed Candice. She felt quite it's a very much YA book, but she felt quite grown up. And I really, really enjoyed reading about the trainee program and the K-pop world. And there were romances in here that I definitely didn't overtake, so I didn't mind that at all. They were sort of side things, and I quite like the way they were going. And there's a second one to this, and it was, again, a very much struggle for me not to just pick up the second one straight away. But I didn't, and now I kind of regret it, because I want to finish it, and I want to know what happens to Candice. But I just enjoyed the whole journey of this one. I'm very much fascinated. I'm a K-pop fan, so I just absolutely really, really enjoyed this one. It was a quick read. I couldn't put it down, and I'm very excited to see where the second one's going to go. As you can see, sort of the TBR, I just didn't stick to it that great and just sort of went off on one. But it was a fun month to do that. I had quite a fun time just being a mood reader. Next up was my only audiobook for the month. Now, if you saw my last wrap up, I struggled with the audiobooks. And I sort of thought to myself, I'm going to take a break this month. But then one of you, Amelia Reads, hi Amelia, you commented and said, have you listened to The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo on audio? It's brilliant. I really enjoyed it. And I thought, you know what? I am sort of missing an audiobook. I'm going to give this one a try. So I did read, oh, it's right there. I can't see it because I have to put it in after. That was weird to say. Oh, what is it called? The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. And this is the story of Xiomara, who is sort of on the cusp from girlhood to womanhood and is just trying to find her way in the world and dealing with religion and boys. And I just have to say, I thought, well, I'm going to say thank you, Amelia, because you said it was really good. And my friend, you are correct. I really, really enjoyed this one. I loved the way it was written. Written and read to me. The audiobook was absolutely brilliant. It's read by Elizabeth herself. Oh, she knows how to read it. In the story, Xiomara very much wants to be a poet. And the book reads like poetry. It's the kind of writing they absolutely love. And to have it read by the author was absolutely brilliant. I loved the audiobook. It just had so much to say. It didn't have a massive plot to it, but it was just very much finding out who you are and dealing with boys and dealing with men when you shouldn't have been dealing with men. And her parents are very religious and she is very much going away from religion. So it's that, and she has a twin. And the way it was written, even though there wasn't much plot, it felt like there was so much going on. And that's such the sign for me of a good book. And the audiobook was just, I keep saying it, but it was fantastic. It read like poetry and just the rhythm that she reads it in was so brilliant. I really, really enjoyed this book. I actually have Clap While You Land physically by this author, and I want to get onto that one now because I enjoyed this one so much. So huge thanks to Amelia for recommending it. I love this book. It's the best audiobook I've listened to in a long time. Now lastly, I read A Tale for Time Being by Ruth Ozeki. Now this I chose from the First Line Battle video. I'll link it down below. And in this we follow the story of Now, who finds a diary and decides to write down the stories her great-grandmother Jiko told her, but she ends up sort of writing her own life story, and then it is washed up on shore in Canada and is found by Ruth, and she sort of becomes obsessed with this diary and reads it and wants to find out if it's true. And it's a really captivating book. I have to say I gave it 5 stars, although I will say it took me a while to get into it. I am the type of person that doesn't like to start new things. So I really struggle to start a new book. Like, have you ever seen 30 Rock where Liz Lemon says she doesn't want to start a new relationship? She wants to be 12 years in, eating Chinese food on the couch and the sex has stopped. That's me. That's me in life. I don't like to start new things. It took me a while to get into this, which was strange because I literally chose it for a First Line Battle because I thought it started so well. But once I got into it, boy, did I love it. I loved Now and her story, and I loved Ruth trying to figure out her life, and it sort of felt fantastical, this book, and magical. I thought it was brilliant. I loved the way it was so centered on these two characters, yet the story was so expansive. It deals with the 2011 tsunami, it deals with 9/11, and it never felt like, whoa, it's gone off on a tangent here I can't get. I got it. I think this is my first Ruth Ozeki book. It certainly won't be the last. She's an incredibly talented author. It has sort of footnotes on it, and I thought it was wonderful. It made me cry. It made me have a little cry in the bath. Well, not a little cry. It was quite a big cry. But I just thought the way you care so deeply for Now and her story, and it deals with dark things. It deals with trigger warnings for suicide and loss of family members, but it is dealt with such heart and such grace without ever sort of being fluffy and light. It just struck the right balance. I loved it. I absolutely adored this book. I thought it was magic. I just thought it was magic in a book. And Ruth Ozeki is a very talented author. She won. This was shortlisted for the Booker Prize, and I can see why. I would like to know what won. I'd like to know what beat it, because I can't imagine anything beating it. But obviously some do. And those judges know much more than I do, much more intelligent than I am. But so glad I did the first line battle. I will do that again at some point because I really enjoyed it, and it gave me my favourite book of the month. So, well done, Jack. No, well done, Ruth, for writing it. I just read it. So that was it for me. 9 books, sort of a varied month. More so me than the books. I sort of enjoyed most of the books really, apart from one. Let me know if you read any of these, if you're going to read any of these, if you didn't like any of these. Please feel free to like and subscribe. Again, like and subscribe, and it really helps. I just want to thank you all so much for watching, and I'm going to speak to you all really, really soon.